Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid and episode 7 of our Let's Build an Offensive System series. Today we're going to start talking about the drop back passing game, but before we can get into the X's and O's of the plays that are in the playbook, we need to talk about how we set a progression in the drop back passing game and how we teach the reads in the drop back game. And because the way that I teach is a little bit different than a lot of coaches do. But let's start with the progressions. I, like a lot of coaches, run a variation of the R4 system. And the R4 is just a way that we set the order of progression in the passing game that is tied into the footwork of the quarterback. So what we are looking to do is we are looking to accelerate the decision making in the progression by basically giving our quarterback yes, no questions in their route, or in their drop progression. So what do I mean by that? So with the R4, we got 4 routes. We've got the read, rhythm, the rush, and the release. And very important thing, once we get in, we're gonna give an example here and talk about the progression. But the big thing that I have with this, and I stick with my quarterbacks on, is sticking to the progression. Do not freelance. You have a route progression, stick to it, and you will never be wrong in your decision making. So let's just pick a play. Go with my 61. This is your standard air raid Y stick play that every air raid team runs, and it has been a staple of mine for years. And let's talk about the route progression. Okay, so my first route, the read route, that is going to be the route that is going to hit open when my quarterback gets the top of his drop. When he gets to the top of his drop, when his back foot hits the ground, that route needs to be open. So in this case, I usually label it with green. So my quarterback's going to take a one-step drop. When his back foot hits the ground, we're looking for this stick. Is it open? Yes, no. If it's not, we move on to the rhythm route. And the rhythm route is a route that is thrown off of the readjust that the quarterback takes in his footwork when the first route isn't open. And in this case, it would be the flat route. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating an inside out and somewhat high-low read on a flat defender. And we're looking who's open, slot receiver to running back, stick to flat. That is the essential, the read in this play. Now, we have other routes built into the system. We have what we call our rush routes and our release routes. The rush routes, for me, we have 2 of them on this particular play. So my outside, my Z receiver in this case here, we have a rush route here. And basically what I'm telling my quarterback, if we get an advantageous alignment, let's say we get a press alignment, okay, we're going to peak this route as we're getting into our drop. So if he can beat this guy off the line and we can throw the whole shot ball right here at about 10 yards, 10 to 12 yards, we can take it. If we can't, then that route's dead and we just go into our progression, our read and our rhythm. All right. Next, we have a backside blitz replace hot route that if we have a linebacker who's blitzing off the backside, we know we can throw this slant. That's a rush route. So we're going to rush that. We're going to ignore the progression. We're not ignoring the progression. We're going straight on to step 3 in the progression. So this play is set up with the read, the rhythm, and then you've got your rush routes. And since these decisions are made in the progression, we can't go back. So, for example, if we come out here and we commit to throwing this fade, and we get set to throw and we don't throw it, corner bails, okay, receiver falls down. One of these things where we are interrupted in our progression. We can't get this ball off. We don't have time to come back to the top of the progression and go back to our slot receiver. So what do we got to do? We've got to release. Same thing here. If I feel like we've got a blitz here and I set my foot and I get in position to throw this slant and the linebacker jumps it or the linebacker sits or I misread what I thought was a blitz to begin with, I don't have time to come back to the other side of the field. So what have I got to do? I've got to get to my release route. And in this case, our release route is this whip route on the back side. Now, if I get flushed here to the front side, my release route is to run. So we are building in options tied into the footwork so it can accelerate the quarterback's decision making. More importantly, I don't want the quarterback to be making decisions. I want the quarterback to be reacting to what he's seeing and just throwing the football. Making decisions requires too much brain power. This simplifies things and goes from there. So there's a lot of nuances to this R4 system, and this is the way that I interpret it. Obviously, there are thousands of videos from coaches all over the world on the internet talking about this system, and it's been around for decades. And this is the way that I interpret it, and then I use it in my system. So I simplified the decision making. All right, let's talk about reads. And this is where I depart from a lot of people, except for the people in the air raid world. I do not teach my quarterbacks to read coverage. Now, I am not as hard on it as, say, Hal Mummy is, where he strictly forbids his quarterbacks from even understanding coverage. Like, I don't do that. I want my quarterbacks to know defensive structure. But for me, knowing defensive structure is only there to help us know where the holes in the defense are going to be so we can anticipate where our eyes are supposed to be to throw the football. And what I teach my quarterbacks to do is get to the top of your drop. Is the read route open? Yes or no. There's no yeah, but. Yeah, but I thought. You can get in a lot of trouble by thinking in football. You need to react. There is a millisecond delay when there's thought involved. It needs to be yes, no, not yes, but, or no, maybe. It needs to be yes, no. So in a case right here, okay, we are trying to get positioning on this flat defender here. Now, one thing that we would be doing here is we probably wouldn't be running an outside release here. I would try to get more inside. So something more like this. I'm not going to redraw the route for the sake of argument. But the idea is this inside spot here, moving away from the flat defender. This is the first read. Is the receiver going to be in that spot when I get to the top of my drop? Yes or no? And if he's going to be, throw the ball to the spot and make the receiver go get it. Not wait for a defender to make a reaction and then throw off of the reaction. The routes cause the reaction. So if the receiver is open where he's supposed to be, then the defender did what the route structure designed him to do. I don't need to know why. I don't need to know why did this flat defender jump the flat route instead of sinking inside to take away the stick. I don't care. All I care about is when my quarterback takes his one-step drop and he turns his foot and he looks to this spot at 6 yards, that there's open grass. If there's open grass, I'm going to put the ball there, and then it's the receiver's job to catch it. And you'd be amazed at how high of a level in football you can get without having to worry about coverage. Let me, the offensive coordinator, the play caller, worry about coverage. Let me anticipate where the defenders are going to be. And it's your job as a quarterback and as a receiver to be where you're supposed to be on time. And if you're not, you're covered. And this is something that Wisconsin got in a lot of trouble with over these last 2 years, was getting open on schedule. There was no sense of anticipation. There was no sense of what to do and where to go. We had a lot of, I know how to run a route, but I have problems getting that receiver out of my stem so I can get to that spot as a receiver against a defender, excuse me. So, in order to run a system like this where you're not teaching coverage, you need to have your receivers understand that they need to run routes without collision, with allowing these defenders to rough them up, and have the ability to get off the line of scrimmage and get to where they're going on time. And if you can't do that, then this isn't going to work, and then you're just going to be in a situation where there's no coverage to read. It's just man on man, and you've already shown yourself that you can't win anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So it's important that your receivers are good on their releases. They know how to stem their routes, and then they know how to create space at the top of their routes. And understanding them knowing how to create space allows us as a play caller and as a coordinator to let these quarterbacks know what spot on the field that we need to put the ball in, so we don't create situations where we throw a turnover worthy ball. So keeping it simple and not making it more difficult than it has to be. That is the name of the drop back passing game, and how you can be very successful in a system like this as long as you take away the question asking ability of your quarterbacks. They don't get to ask questions. They get to react. And that's it. Put the ball in space. All right, so that's how we set up a progression, and that's how we read in my version of the air raid system in our offensive system that we're building in this series. Next time, we are going to start with one of my 2 drop back passing series, my quick series. And my quick series is not just quick routes, quick passing game, but it's quick decision making, in that I don't give my quarterbacks and my receivers a lot to do. It is just simple routes, simple spots. We get the ball in there and we get rid of it as quickly as we can. And that will be for next time. So until then, thank you for watching, and we'll see you then.